Many issues were coming up in the country. Many people could not decide about the issue of slavery. They had things like the Talmadge Amendment. When the point of that amendment was to make Missouri as a free state. Many issues were coming up in the country. Many people could not decide about the issue of slavery. They had things like the Talmadge Amendment, when they could make Missouri a state. The point of that amendment was to make Missouri as a free state. People were angry when they figured out that Missouri was a slave state. Abolitionists failed the Congress. They were telling it to not do that. But unfortunately, they just got silenced. And what we call today the gag rule. Also, they made a new law that made fugitives have to go back to their masters whenever they were captured. That amendment made Missouri a slave state, which angered a lot of people. In the Compromise of 1850, California would be a free state. Meanwhile, the other territories would become a slave state, so they could please the South. The compromise was not highly accepted, and most people were angry. All these events led up to another event called the Austin Manifesto and the Kansas-Nebraska Act, which led to a bloodshed in Kansas. Most farmers were looking for fertile soil, but they were met by no slavery abolitionists and a violent fight. And that caused in the Congress a giant fight. Senator Charles Sumner of Massachusetts got really angry because of this violence in Kansas, and he ended up beating up South Carolina Representative Preston Brooks. The Dred Scott decision was a case on March 6, 1857, that Dred Scott was suing for freedom because he slept on free land, as he said. But he was responding back with him being as guilty, aka, he's not free, because of the fact that he shouldn't even be in the court because he's not a citizen, and he could never be a citizen. From then on, things only got worse. John Brown had a huge rate. He adopted a more extreme approach. Rather than to wait for Congress to act, he had an arsenal. He did several accounts of violence. All at once, of course, at Harper's Ferry in Virginia. And then came what we now call as a Civil War, which started with South Carolina attacking Fort Sumter. In the Civil War, the South had a great advantage over its military leadership. All the best military officers were in the South. Unfortunately, though, their main weakness was their economy. Their economy cannot support a long war or several ships or weapons for a while. The North, though, had impressive strengths. They had geographic advantages, but unfortunately their weakness was military leadership, something that the South ruled in. Antietam was a bloody affair. Several people died that day, more than usual. That is what made this war a bloody war, because battles like this just carried on and so many people died. At Gettysburg, though, at the time, the emancipation had begun. Slaves were free, but no one really cared for the law. No one really paid attention to it. At Gettysburg, a huge battle was among them. More than 17,500 Union soldiers died and 23,000 Confederate troops were killed or wounded in the 3 days of battle. Lee, one of the generals, lost about a third of his army. and he went back to Virginia. At Fort Wagner, African Americans joined the war. A notable regiment of the fighters was the Massachusetts 54th Regiment, very famous because they tried very hard and some of the missions were called suicide missions, but they still did it. At Appomattox, total war brings an end. That means they want to killing everyone. Because Grant believed in total war. He was another general. Very important general too. So, Lincoln got re-elected, and Sherman marched through Georgia and taking over the camps as he went along. At the end, Grant's forces battered Lee's army at Petersburg, the gateway to Richmond. And he says, "There's nothing left for me to do, so go see General Grant, and I would rather die 1,000 deaths." And that brought the war to an end. Luckily, the Confederate States, they got off easy. The North did not want to create any more violence, so they just had some light terms, which people were surprised at, and just carried on, and then the country was supposedly won again.
Joel! Joel! I don't want to! Because if I fall... Hey, he's running! Get him! Get him! Get him! You run a Swiss slave! Chug!
No, let him drink it.
Chug!
Adrian. Adrian, you suck.
Get put it in there!
Adrian, get away.
Chug!
You can do it!
Yo!
It burns.
It's get
We know it burns. This is when
You know what's retarded?
Dun 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 dun.
You do it like this, and they're gonna throw the pizza.
No, don't stop it. Stop.
Come on.
Ooh.
You'll be wet.
I can't help it.
I don't got this. I can entertain myself.
Coming out, extra.
Guys.
That thing is sick.
Wait.
I saw those plans.
Is it doing it?
Let me see.
Oh,
That looks cool.
Okay, everybody get away from the camera. This it works.
Oh, it's hella sick.
Wow. Extra.